Hi guys, this is Brad Krantz. Welcome to Monday Morning Leadership. Thanks for joining me. Today we're continuing with the 78 important questions every leader should ask and answer. And we're looking at questions that leaders need to ask themselves. And today I'm going to look at answering how do you feel about being a leader, right? And this will be part one of two, okay? I think we know by now that leadership is more than just a skill set, right? Real leadership is a combination of well-honed skills combined with an open and gracious spirit. I think that's a pretty good definition. I agree with that. But how you feel about a leader will always influence how you act as a leader. Well, I agree with that in a sense, but I'm going to take this a little bit further and explain. Self-confidence obviously is huge in your success as a leader. You have to feel confident, you've got to feel capable, you've got to feel worthy, all that. Yet I can't help but take a step back and ask, what drives how you feel as a leader? Is it self-confidence alone? No, many people obviously have self-confidence, but they're not good leaders. And we see this all too often. And I'll say here, I think this question is kind of a bit of the cart leading the horse, that yes, with self-confidence, yes, how you feel as a leader, but how you feel as a leader, I believe really should reflect the characteristics and qualities of a leader, which is what I'm going to get into here. So it doesn't matter how you feel as whatever it is, as a football player, as a mother, father, do you have the capabilities, the skill set, the characteristics of a good mother or father? I think that's far more important than somebody just asks you how you feel about a father and they're a drug up, deadbeat, abusive person. Well, they're going to have a different answer than somebody who understands it. So I don't want to get too extreme here, but that's kind of where I'm going, because we see this all too often. Somebody gets promoted into a position of management, quote, leader. I saw this a lot during my work experience of 41 plus years. Just saw it here even this week with one of my daughters. I'm not going to tell you what she does or where she works, but this person was promoted to a position of a, quote, manager. And a lot of other people that my daughter works with were kind of having some questions about this person because they didn't introduce themselves. They didn't say hi to anybody. And what happens a lot is you may be good at your job, your skill set, and then the company promotes you to a manager, quote, leader, but you don't know anything about managing people. You don't have the soft skill of people skills. You don't know anything about leadership. What's a good leader? What's a bad leader? What are characteristics of a leader? And I think this is critical if we're going to deal with this, if somebody's going to be in that position. So that being said, I'm going to take a slightly different tact on this question and suggest that it is the characteristics of leadership that provide the true foundation and thereby manifest themselves into how you feel as a leader. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. You know, how well, and I'll ask the question, how well do you manifest the characteristics of a leader to start it out? You know, I did a series on the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader by John Maxwell here over the past several months. That's a good for reference point. You know, everyone defines leadership differently, but I really like the way John Maxwell defines leadership. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Irrespective of how you define a leader, he or she can prove to be a difference maker between success and failure. Okay. So I want to look at a slightly different list and keep in mind, quote, how you feel as a leader as we look at them, okay? So I'm going to ask these with a series of questions interspersed here. Number one is honesty and integrity. How well do you manifest these in your leadership? Honesty and integrity. You know, Dwight Eisenhower, who was our 34th president, once said that the supreme quality of leadership is unquestionable integrity. And I'd have to say that's great. That's one of the great characteristics, 100% on. You know, without it, no real success is possible, because no matter whether it is on your section gang, a football field, or in the Army, or in the office, honesty and integrity are important. Honesty and integrity are two important ingredients which make a good leader. I think we can all agree on that. Number two, we're back to confidence. Okay, I said I don't think confidence alone does it. You know, it's certainly the building block to being successful. If you don't have self-confidence or confidence in anything you're doing, you're not going to be successful. But I think it can't stand on its own. So I'm going to ask the question, how confident are you? You know, to be an effective leader, you really should be confident enough to ensure that others follow your commands or your leadership. If you're unsure about your decisions and qualities, then your subordinates, your team members, all that, well, they'll never follow you, right? As a leader, you have to be oozing with confidence, show some swagger, maybe some assertiveness to gain the respect of your subordinates. Okay, now this doesn't mean that you should be, I'll say, overconfident, cocky, arrogant, but you should at least reflect the degree of confidence required to ensure that, again, your followers, your teammates trust you as a leader. Because if you're not, they won't. Number 3, you got to inspire others. Yes, a leader needs to inspire others, and I might even add empower others going on with that, because I think the inspiration should also be empowering. Probably the most difficult job for a leader is to persuade others to follow. John Maxwell said, if you're taking a walk, you think you're a leader, nobody's following you, you're just taking a walk, right? It can only be possible if you inspire your followers by setting a good example. When the going gets tough, they look up and see how you react to the situation, right? Lead by example. If you handle it well, they'll follow you. As a leader, you should think positive, and this positive approach should be visible through your actions. Stay calm under pressure, keep the motivation level up. All that's really, really important, right? It's John Quincy Adams put it, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. And that's a great definition there too. So how are you doing on this? Number 4 is commitment and passion. And this is a whole topic in of itself. How committed and passionate are you? Right? Your teams look up to you, and if you want to give them their all, you'll have to be passionate about it too, right? When your teammates see you getting your hands dirty, so I call this leading by example, they'll also give their best shots. You're not saying do as I do, or do as I say, not as I do. It's also going to help you to gain the respect of your subordinates. And it's going to infuse energy into your team members, which helps them to perform better, which is kind of what would want to do as a leader. So if you aren't committed, what happens? Okay, that's kind of a reflective, rhetorical question. Number 5 is a good communicator. So how good of a communicator are you? I believe to be a good communicator, you have to be, number 1, a good listener. And I've talked about this with the characteristics of a servant leader. And to be a good listener should require empathy. So if you're not a good listener, you can't be a good communicator. But if you're a good listener, you should also have empathy. So a good communicator should be a good listener, and this should lead to empathy. I'll say ideally, because it may not always. So until you clearly communicate your vision to your team and tell them the strategy to achieve the goal, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to get the results as you want. I think we could all agree with that. Simply put, if you're unable to communicate your message effectively to your team, you can never be a good leader, right? They don't know what you want them to do. So a good communicator can be a good leader, but this requires, and I'm going to say it again, listening and empathy. And these are 2 of the key characteristics of servant leadership. Number 6 is decision-making capabilities. Okay, how good of a decision maker are you? Apart from having a futuristic vision, right? We talk about the vision-driven leader. A leader should have the ability to take the right decision at the right time. Okay, decisions by leaders have a profound impact on their masses, more so than you might realize. Leaders should think long and hard before taking a decision, but once the decision is taken, to stand by it. Although most leaders take decisions on their own, it's highly recommended that you consult key stakeholders, team members, and all that before taking a decision. Again, getting input from others. They're going to buy into it better if they had something to say about it versus you just dictating. Again, I'm not talking so much your corporate leadership, but leadership in general. Again, this goes back to leading by example, okay, involving team members, communication, all this stuff. So after all those are the people, your team members, stakeholders, employees, et cetera, they're going to benefit or suffer from your decision. So it really helps if they have some input with that. Okay. Number 7 is accountability. And wow, this one is huge today, I think more than ever. How many people aren't accountable? And on the flip side, how accountable are you as a leader? When it comes to accountability, you need to follow the approach highlighted by Arnold Glasgow. And he said, a good leader takes little more than his share of the blame and little less than his share of the credit. And I think there's very much wisdom in that. Make sure that every one of your subordinates is accountable for what they're doing. Okay. And if they do well, you give them a pat on the back, right? But if they struggle, make them realize their mistakes and help work together with them to improve it. Right? Nobody gets better if you don't help them out, show them how they could do better. Holding them accountable for their actions will create a sense of responsibility among your subordinates, teammates, employees, whoever it may be, and they'll go about the business more seriously. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Join me next week for part 2 on how do you feel as a leader. We're going to address 8 more characteristics next week. In the meantime, if you got some value or benefit out of this, please feel free to hit the subscribe button so you can get more messages that I put out. And as always, please feel more than free or welcome to connect with me on social media. If you'd like to know a little bit more about what I do, you'd like to talk about this more, you'd like to ask questions, I encourage you to reach out. And again, let's connect and be social on social media. You guys have an awesome Monday. Bye-bye now.